here we go. Whoa! What's up everybody, I'm Maran and this is the 2022 Audi RS e-Tron GT. So about the RS version of the e-Tron GT, well, a very cool all-electric vehicle, of course, shares a lot of its platform with the Porsche Taycan, but Audi has their own unique spin and flavor here, and the styling, of course, is totally Audi and looks very futuristic and very cool. It's certainly, you know, not quite as crazy as some of the others out there these days, and I think compared to the Taycan, it certainly is more traditional looking, but I think it still looks really nice. You have those laser light headlights, you know, a very low, very wide front end there, very long hood. It really gives you these dramatic proportions and just really feels like it's almost like melting into the road with the way that it's styled. And that continues on here to the sides where, you know, you can see these fenders are scalped out here with these air ducts both in the back and little ones in the front there, which even have some carbon fiber garnish on them. You also have these really sweet looking wheels, and you know, also you'll see a fully carbon fiber roof here on these, and it's a huge piece of carbon fiber. It goes way back there, and I just love the proportions on the side here, the way it really juts out and gives this car like some really wide hips there as you go out towards the back of the vehicle. It's really impressive, and the curves and the curvature that flows into the taillights there is really cool look. It's also very cool how they kind of disguised half the trunk there by making that rear window look longer than it actually is. Just from every angle, I think this thing just looks so cool, really makes a statement, especially in this tango red color. The interior of the e-Tron GT is surprisingly simple, honestly, compared to most of the competitors, which have tons of huge screens. This has, you know, two fairly small screens, relatively speaking, and a bunch of physical controls, and it's really a refreshing change and just really surprising, honestly, for a vehicle that's so futuristic. But anyway, I'll get more into this interior later in the video, but first let's start up and go for a drive. So the thing about the e-Trons here is that, of course, it has, you know, a nice little key, it's keyless access and all that. I really love how they have the RS badging on out there though, and just nice and small. It's very welcome. Again, a different change compared to a lot of the big keys you see from other companies. But anyway, whenever you sit down here, it automatically turns it on. It just detects you in the seat here, and so it'll automatically, you know, load all your settings and start it up just as soon as you sit down. All right, so setting off here in the e-Tron GT. So the first thing you'll probably notice is this soundtrack, which is very apparent and makes itself known with some fairly loud sounds. You know, some other electric vehicles are quieter, but this is one of the louder ones, honestly, that I've experienced, and it's a really cool sound. I'm the kind of person with the opinion that if, you know, it's going to have silence, you know, as far as the actual real motors are concerned for the most part, I would rather have fake noise than no noise at all. Now, thankfully, you can change that. There's an individual mode. You can have it quiet. You can have this balance setting, or there's a dynamic mode, which makes it even louder. You can have up to a 78 decibel sound out of this thing whenever you know, you're going full tilt. And so I think it's cool they give you that adjustability and customization there. It would be cool if you could pick different sounds. They've just conducted one sound basically here they think is appropriate for the vibe of the e-Tron GT, and so anyway, I think that's a pretty cool touch. Other things here, I also love how you have a nice, very low dashboard. You have excellent visibility here, looking forward at least. You know, A-pillars get out of the way nicely. You do have a very narrow view out of the rear though. That's one thing. It's not the best, but of course you have all the tech and stuff to help you maneuver this thing, 360 cameras, all that. But you know, just it's a very cool and very unique driving position, I think, too. You feel like you're sitting fairly low, but not like sports car low, in my opinion. So it's kind of this nice blend of sporty, but also, you know, nothing too crazy either. Another thing I really love about this vehicle is that all the driver inputs are very easy to be smooth with. So other vehicles, sometimes electric vehicles can be a little tricky with the brakes. This feels nice and normal with the brake pedal, so it's easy to be smooth with, even though this one has the optional carbon ceramic brakes, which are massive there and you know, very impressive with their stopping abilities, but it doesn't feel racy or hard to manage in any way. Throttle response is also nice and easy, especially here in the comfort mode. Otherwise though, you know, aside from that generated sound, it's nice and quiet and refined in here. I've already been driving this vehicle for a week, so I took it up on the highway and did all kinds of, you know, driving in it, and it's really quiet and, you know, very refined, much like you'd expect out of something that's this expensive, or any other Audi for that matter. You know, it just feels very appropriate for, you know, that price tag, and just is a really nice, smooth driving experience. You have an air ride suspension here as well, so that soaks up the bumps nicely, and really gives you a nice, comfortable ride too. But I'm going to go ahead and put it into the dynamic mode. We'll do a boost mode launch later. That's how you get the maximum performance and power. We're just going to do our normal rolling acceleration here and see how it does. Here we go. Whoa! Still super fast. I can actually feel the blood rushing to the back of my head there. I mean, it is still super fast and powerful. Woo, yeah, so this thing, and there's that extra sound, and oh man, yeah, it's a good thing you have these very beefy brakes, because you're going to need them in this thing. 2.9 seconds 0 to 60 is what Car and Driver actually clocked. I think Audi claims a 3.3 seconds 0 to 60 very modestly. It's definitely, yeah, sub 3 seconds. So I mean, we're talking, you know, supercar, hypercar kinds of numbers here out of this thing. It is insanely fast, and it is a rush. And that was only a little bit less power than you actually can get with the boost mode. Boost mode gives you 637 horsepower and then 612 pound-feet of torque regardless. But whenever you're not in the boost mode, so what we just experienced was 590 horsepower, which, you know, these days with insane, you know, performance numbers, 590 horsepower doesn't sound like an astronomical amount to give you, you know, a sub 3 seconds 0 to 60 time, but it's just the way it deploys that instantly and immediately, and the way it puts the power down really, really well is what's really the most impressive. And I do have to say, though, that it's nice and dry here today, but most of the week it was raining, and whenever you encounter wet roads, good luck, because it actually struggled to put the power down a little bit with just how ferocious it deploys that power, and it just makes actually a little bit more sketchy than I was expecting, honestly, for an all-wheel drive electric vehicle. You know, the traction control was struggling to put that power down, especially when it was a little bit cooler. Now, it was always over 40 degrees, so it's within the operating temperatures of this tire, which is the Goodyear Eagle F1 tire, but it's a special electric drive version of that tire, which I think gives you a little less grip probably, and a little less rolling resistance, and, you know, better efficiency as a result. But anyway, but even this road, though, it's pretty rough, generates a lot of road noise usually. You don't really hear too much here. But anyway, we're coming up some corners here I always take, and let's see how the handling is here in the e-Tron RS GT. So they're over 5,100 pounds, but you have four-wheel steering as an option, which this one does have, and you also have lots of grip. These tires, they're 295 wide in the front, 305s in the rear, and just, you know, obviously having all the batteries in the floor there gives you a very low center of gravity, and that four-wheel steer just, you know, makes it so that, I mean, this thing handles flawlessly. Once again, it is very, very impressive here in the dry. Now, I will say, again, I was driving this vehicle not, you know, super spiritedly, but I was, you know, playing around with it a little bit, again, with most of this week being rainy, wet roads that are on the cooler side. These tires seem like they don't love the rain. Again, I don't know if it's the special blend for this electric version of the Eagle F1s or what, but I didn't fully trust this thing in the rain exiting corners. I mean, and again, that traction control light was coming on a bunch. It was, again, struggling to put power down, and I didn't feel like it was super planted whenever it was in the wet. Here in the dry, though, I have no confidence issues with it at all. But honestly, on most ordinary back roads, this thing's going to have so much performance as far as handling goes that, I mean, going around those corners, it just felt like it wasn't even breaking a sweat. I mean, you're going to have to really be pushing this thing a lot more to try and find the limits here in the dry, at least. It is very, very capable. It's also crazy, the power delivery in this thing, not only whenever you're flooring it, but also just whenever you're cruising around. I mean, you just like lean on the gas and you're instantly up like 10 miles per hour. Like, it is so impressive in the way that it honestly feels, not like, next generation is a very thrown around, overused word, but this truly feels like an evolution in automotive performance in the way that it instantly leaps by tens in the speed. It's just like 30, 40, 50, there you go. And it's like, and that wasn't even flooring it, that's just like leaning into it, and it just does that. And so it just gives you such fun point and shoot capabilities basically with this thing, whether you're just trying to, you know, quickly accelerate, you know, turning in through an intersection, or whether you're trying to you know, merge onto the highway or make a quick pass on the highway. It's just, I mean, like any other electric vehicle where they're very immediate with their power, but this one is just so fast that it is really like, I want to be there now, here I am, and I'm there. You know, it's just like so quick with the way that it does all that, and it's just, this is one of these vehicles that really feels like you have superpowers when you're in this thing. I mean, obviously this is Tony Stark's car, if you follow the Marvel movies, and it really does feel like it's, you know, suitable for a superhero, because you feel like you have superhuman capabilities, honestly, with this thing whenever you're just driving around, because it just does whatever you ask of it. But I'm going to try boost mode very briefly here. Left foot on the brake, right foot on the gas, and then hold the right paddle, I think. And I think we are ready. Here we go. Woo! Okay, so it didn't tell me that it was going into a boost mode, but it did say that the power meter was over the normal range there. So I think we did a boost mode. I don't know, but regardless, it's still insanely fast either way, no matter what you do, how you cut it. I mean, it's very, very impressive, and certainly will be a crowd pleaser. You know, anyone you take for a ride in this thing will be blown away by how fast this thing is. We got some more corners here. I'll just try seeing if I can get that back end to play around on me again. Nope, in the dry it just grips and goes, but man, it really leaps out of these corners. Like, I mean, it's impressive. This thing really has very, very impressive capabilities. Man, oh man, I am just like, it's addictive though, because it's like, I just want to go faster and faster, and I gotta like slow myself down and be like, nope, I'm on public roads, I can't push this as much as I want to. I would love to take one of these around a track, because it's just, I mean, it's way more capability here than I can, you know, use even remotely responsibly. It's just like, this just cuts this up. Like, I feel like the car is yawning while we're doing this. It's just like, what else do you got for me? It's impressive. I mean, these are corners that I take around. I've taken hundreds of cars around those corners, and it's been a great judge of, you know, how I can push them and, you know, the characteristics they exhibit. This is just like, yeah, like, what else? Like, boring. Like, it's crazy. Also, while we calm down here and just kind of get back to some relaxed cruising, some other important things here, this being an electric vehicle, of course, let's talk about the battery and all that. So it's an 85 kilowatt hour battery, a little bit on the smaller side these days, but still does 232 miles of range is what it's rated at. The good news is it means the battery can recharge pretty quickly, and since this is on an 800 volt architecture, just like the Taycan, it means you have 270 kilowatt fast charging capability, which is still some of the fastest out there these days. So I mean, very quick recharge times, and you know, some people have also seen, you know, a lot better efficiency than what you're getting here. So, you know, even though they claim 232, I've seen some people do, you know, over 240 miles of range. Now that still is a lot less than most of its other competitors though, so if range is important to you, this probably isn't the best choice, but that, you know, quick charging really is, you know, very, very nice. But one other thing too is you do have these regen paddles here. So they allow you to do some regen braking. It's not a one pedal mode. It's not quite that aggressive. And there's only two settings to it. There's like the regular, and then there's two settings down from that. And it slows you down a little bit. It's not super intense. I wouldn't even say it's as intense as a regular downshift if you had a real transmission in a gas car. But it's still, you know, allows you to kind of just like, we're on these, you know, very rolling hills here we have. And I can go ahead and crank it up, and it'll slow me down a little bit so that I'm not really accelerating going down this hill, and kind of hold the speed for the most part. And gives you some extra regen there, and allows a little bit more electricity to go into the battery. So it's nice you have that. It is just cool to have paddles, not only because this is a sporty vehicle and, you know, it's something fun to play with in addition to the usual stuff, but also just the fact that, you know, it helps you to maximize your efficiency. And so if you're someone who wants to be involved in the driving experience and you want to really hypermile this vehicle, that's a fun way you can kind of get a little bit more involved. And I really just enjoy any electric vehicle that offers up the regen paddles. It's a really cool thing. And I mean, this road is brand new, you know, buttery smooth here, and so it really goes to show just how super quiet, super smooth. Most of the noise you're hearing is still generated by the speakers here, but I still like it how even in the background there, as you're slowing down and stuff, it's just a nice backdrop of, you know, ambient noise basically. That, again, some people, if you want it to be as quiet as a library in here, you can do that, but I really like that extra little bit of noise you get here. And let's merge down onto the highway here in comfort mode. A little bit smoother with the power delivery, but still very fast and impressive. So I have the adaptive cruise control set here, and just cruising along here on the highway. It's a really nice cruiser. You know, the only thing I will say is that it doesn't really have as much tech as you might be expecting, again, from something super futuristic and electric. You know, a lot of the others really play up, you know, their driver assistance technologies. This you know, it has a lane keep assist system. It's pretty passive though, where it only once you start like actually like going onto the lane will it be like, hey, let's like give you a little bit of a nudge, but it doesn't actively try and do any kind of lane centering or anything. So it's a pretty, again, old school system, honestly. I mean, it's an adaptive cruise system, works great with all the usual adaptive cruise control stuff that everyone has known and, you know, understands for the past, you know, 10 years or so here. But, you know, it just doesn't, you know, give you a ton of stuff, even though you have all those crazy sensors in the front there. You'd think it would do a little more, but it's just the basics, and still no problem with that though, especially the RS version here. You know, it's a driver's vehicle. I'm assuming people buying these, you know, probably are enjoying the driving experience, and so they don't mind doing all the steering and all that themselves. But just note that, you know, this isn't going to be quite as advanced as some of the others out there. One other thing that is really cool about this and the Taycan is they share a 2-speed transmission, and it's so seamless though that like I never even felt it shifting during any of those accelerations that I did. It seems to be totally seamless as far as, you know, when it switches over. But it is kind of cool that they're one of the first to experiment with the idea of having different gears for an electric vehicle. Most electric vehicles are just 1 speed, and so it's really cool that this has the 2-speed thing. Getting back to the interior here though of the RS e-Tron GT, it's interesting. If you're used to a Porsche Taycan, for example, I mean, this is going to feel much more old school. I mean, that thing has screens everywhere. Everything is controlled by a screen basically, and this takes a surprisingly analog approach. You know, Audi's very futuristic, and everything in here still feels futuristic in a way, but you still have a lot of physical buttons, and the screens aren't crazy big or anything either. And so it's a stark contrast from not only this, but also most of the other competitors to this vehicle as well, which all have much larger screens and are a little more of a wow factor as far as the technology goes. But the technology here is still great. It's still typical Audi, great solid tech, and all the other basics are really good. Like you have these really nice RS seats that just have the adjustable bolstering. They even have a really nice massage function, one of the better massages I've had in a car recently, and just has heating and ventilation, and just they feel really great. The steering wheel isn't too thick like you get on some other vehicles these days. A nice thin wheel you get a nice grip on, but still has the nice Alcantara wrapping here, and just wonderfully simple with the buttons. There's a few buttons here on it because Audi's one of the few holdouts here who still puts the cruise control in a separate stock, so it means you only have a few buttons on the wheel. Also really refreshing and simple. That's really the whole theme I'm getting from this interior. It's just this refreshingly simple and just really gives it a nice feeling, honestly. Also, the gauges are a nice, you know, digital cluster here, very similar to what you get in any other Audi for the most part. And of course, you have a unique look here with the electric stuff, you know, but other than that, it's all, you know, just the same great stuff. Having a map there for your view, or, you know, whatever information you want displayed. You also have a 10.1 inch touchscreen, which is also very good. It has the wireless smartphone integration, which worked flawlessly all week here. And I mean, you know, it's still a nice screen, still plenty for most people, but again, compared to most of the competitors, a 10-inch screen is a little underwhelming these days, especially at this price point. It all just feels really nice, very easy to, you know, navigate through everything, and it's also hooked up to a Bang & Olufsen stereo, which did sound pretty good. I've already been driving this vehicle for a week here. The 3D effect is really solid. The other thing I noticed is whenever you turn up the sound pretty high, I did hear a little bit of a rattling there. I think it might just be a bad speaker possibly in this one, but there was a little bit of rattling there on the right side. It didn't like those higher volumes, but other than that, I mean, it sounds very, very nice. And then otherwise though, like I said, just all physical controls for, you know, rocker switches here for your climate controls, more rocker switches here for your drive mode selector and things like that. Even a little switch here for your gear selector. And so, yeah, just wonderfully simple, but, you know, refreshingly familiar as well, in a sea of, you know, super futuristic things that may go a little bit too far. I think this is really a nice blend. And so overall, really nice interior. I love the design of it too. You have all this carbon fiber, which has a matte finish to it, and you also just the curvature in the doors here and the ambient lighting at night. Everything about the front of this vehicle is very impressive. And going to the back seat very briefly, it also is surprisingly spacious. I'm 5'9", sitting behind myself. I still have like 3 or 4 inches of legroom to spare, a good amount of headroom. You have your own little climate controls back there, a fold down center armrest, and you know, they even cut out in the floor there, so you actually have a little bit more space for your feet. Really well done as far as that goes. The trunk is also more spacious than I was expecting. When you look at it from the outside, it doesn't look like there's going to be much there, but whenever you open it up, you'll see it goes pretty far back. back there. And there's also two really deep pockets on the right and the left sides there, which is a nice little surprise. And so, you know, still, you know, it's a coupé sedan here. It's not going to have an enormous amount of cargo space, but, you know, still actually is going to be more usable than you might realize. Otherwise, though, as far as what it's like to live with this vehicle for a week here, there's really nothing else to report on. It's just, you know, nice and comfortable and just very fun to always, you know, punch it everywhere you go and have that immediate power that I was talking about earlier, and just have all the luxury of the massaging seats, the great stereo and everything, and just the great looks of this vehicle. It's just a very cool driving experience, but it also nicely blends into the background and just does everything you ask of it as well. And so the last two things here to mention are the efficiency and then the pricing and how it compares to its competition. So first off, the efficiency numbers here, for anyone who cares, these are rated as 79 mpge in the city, 82 on the highway, and 81 combined. And my efficiency that I've observed here over my week has been 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour, which is okay, honestly, for something that's this low and this aerodynamic. You know, I was expecting it to maybe do a little bit better than that. Obviously, I was getting on it and having fun and stuff, and it's also a little bit colder, so that doesn't help either, but, you know, totally fine. And again, if you're buying this, you're okay with the fact that it has lower range compared to its competitors, and so, you know, that's something you probably shouldn't worry about too much. But that is the last thing, though, is how this compares to its competition and the pricing. So these start here for the RS version at about $143,500. This one, as tested, I'm driving here, is just under $162,000 because it has this $20,000 edition 1 or year 1 package, which gives you all the carbon fiber, it gives you the rear-wheel steer, you know, basically every option. You know, these come fully loaded with basically, you know, in this year 1 version. You know, this is probably about what a maxed out version would be, about, you know, 161, 162. And it's interesting because, you know, the main kind of competitor is the Porsche Taycan, which is, you know, obviously on the same platform from the same parent company and all that. And this kind of splits the difference between the GTS version of the Taycan and the Taycan Turbo. It's barely any slower than the Taycan Turbo, but it does give you about a $10,000 price difference. So it's about 10 grand more than a GTS Taycan, but about 10 grand less than a Turbo. So, you know, obviously it's not going to be totally comparable, apples to apples, because, you know, it depends on the packaging and which options you're getting and stuff like that. But, you know, that's kind of, I think, where it lands. It kind of splits the difference between those two Taycans for someone who doesn't want to go all the way up to a Turbo maybe, but doesn't, you know, want to go down to the GTS, or someone who just appreciates physical controls, you know, this more traditional approach here of this over the Taycan. I think that's really going to be, you know, the niche of people who really love this platform, but maybe don't want a Taycan for whatever reason. This is going to be a great alternative for those people. Aside from those people, I think it's kind of an uphill battle as far as the other competitors are concerned these days. Because, I mean, obviously you have the Tesla Model S, which admittedly, I mean, that's a 10-year-old vehicle at this point that's been spruced up. I mean, it is, from a performance standpoint, the Plaid version at $136,000 is much faster than this, still in a straight line at least. It's not going to have the handling capabilities or all the tech, you know, the rear-wheel steer, all the, you know, cool stuff that this has going on in it. So it's simpler, but if all you're caring about is, you know, that straight line performance, the Plaid's going to be definitely the better, you know, bang for your buck as far as electric, you know, super sedans goes. Also, there's now the Lucid Air, and so there's the Touring and Grand Touring trims, which are both at least the same amount of power. I think they're around 600 horsepower at least, up to, I think, even a little bit more than that. I think the Grand Touring is about 1,000 horsepower, and so they'll be a little bit faster than this even, and those also undercut this, you know, by several $1,000s as well. Not like anyone's really value shopping in this segment, but it's just worth noting. You can say you have 1,000 horsepower for less money than this, and you have, you know, the very futuristic stuff with the Lucid Air as well. Now that obviously doesn't have the established dealer network, you know, it's from a new company and stuff, so, you know, a little bit more of an unknown there as far as all that stuff goes. But even if you are interested in something from an established company that has a good amount of dealerships out there and an established reputation, Mercedes now has the AMG version of the EQS, which is a direct competitor to this as well. I would argue it doesn't look as cool, you know, but as far as the non-subjective stuff goes, you have, I think, 700 pound-feet of torque, so more torque in that. It's a very similar 0 to 60 as far as what's claimed. They do even have a slightly bit more power as far as the horsepower goes too, and those start around 147 or so. Again, there's some options you can put on those, but that's very similarly priced to this. Not really, you know, saving much money, but, you know, they do have, you know, the massive screens and, you know, all the other stuff that those have, all the different party tricks and the very lavish interior in those EQSs and stuff. And so just one other brand to consider if you are looking at this price point and looking for something very impressive and electric. There's obviously all kinds of other stuff when you're getting into the gas stuff and all that, but as far as the electric stuff goes, I think those are really the main competitors, and I haven't driven any of those others aside from a Model S P100D many years back. But aside from that, I haven't driven the others, so I can't compare this and say how it drives compared to those. But all I can say is those are the other options out there for you. What I can say is that, you know, those again all feel much more high tech, and the Tesla and I believe the Lucid also don't have the smartphone integration like you get here in this. So, you know, this certainly has some things, you know, going for it and some advantages. And again, if you're like someone who enjoys physical controls, you know, this is really going to be your only shot. And, you know, the one thing in this segment that kind of goes against that trend of screens everywhere for everything. And so I really like that about the e-Tron as well, in addition to just the great, you know, styling, the very, you know, sleek looks, and just the way this thing drives is just, it's really fun and just a very special and exciting experience. And so anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the Audi RS e-Tron GT. Overall, it's just so much fun. We'll do one last acceleration here. Still in comfort mode. That time I think I could finally feel the transmission, because there was like a split second where it interrupted the power delivery and then it kept going. So I think that might be where it switched over there. But yeah, anyway, it's an absolute blast. And so anyway, let me know your thoughts on the RS e-Tron GT in the comments below. Huge thanks to Audi for sending me this vehicle to review for you guys today. Be sure to also like, comment, and subscribe here to keep these videos coming. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.